The room erupted in applause as my father handed my older brother a check for $120,000. He raised his glass and smiled proudly. This, he announced, is what happens when you invest in the right child. Everyone laughed. Then he looked at me. As for Noah, he shrugged. Life isn't fair. I looked down at my untouched dinner. My mother stayed silent. My brother grinned as if he'd just won the lottery. I didn't argue. I didn't complain. Because 3 hours earlier, Grandma's lawyer had called me with words I would never forget. Mr. Hayes, please don't tell your family anything yet. Your grandmother left specific instructions, and they're going to surprise everyone. If you've ever been treated like you were never enough, today's story is for you. Subscribe for more original revenge stories where patience, truth, and perfect timing always win. Now, here's how my family's favorite son lost everything in less than a week. My name is Noah Hayes. I'm 26 years old. Growing up, there were always two sets of rules in our house. One for my older brother Ryan, another for me. Ryan could fail a class. Dad would blame the teacher. If I earned straight A's, Dad would ask why I wasn't number one in the entire school. It didn't matter what I achieved. Ryan was always the success story. I was always the disappointment. By the time I turned 16, I'd stopped asking why. Some families simply decide who deserves love and who has to earn it forever. When I graduated high school, I received a scholarship to a state university. It didn't cover everything, but it covered enough that I thought my parents would help with the rest. Instead, Dad sat me down one evening and folded his arms. We've made a decision. The college fund is going to Ryan. I stared at him. He already graduated. Dad nodded. He wants to open a business? That's a better investment. I felt my chest tighten. What about my tuition? He looked completely unfazed. Take out loans. Build character. That was the end of the conversation. So I did exactly that. I worked nights at a grocery store, delivered food on weekends, graduated with a business degree and nearly $80,000 in student loans. Ryan? His business lasted 11 months. He spent the college fund on luxury office furniture, expensive vacations disguised as networking, and a brand new sports car. When the business failed, Dad blamed the economy. Not Ryan. Never Ryan. There was only one person who saw everything. Grandma Evelyn. She never confronted Dad directly. That wasn't her style. Instead, she quietly encouraged me every chance she got. Whenever I visited, she'd ask about school, about work, about my plans. She never asked about my grades. She asked whether I was happy. There was a difference. One afternoon, she smiled and said, "People who work quietly usually surprise everyone." At the time, I thought she was simply trying to make me feel better. I had no idea she'd already made plans of her own. After college, I accepted an entry-level job at a financial consulting firm. The pay wasn't amazing, but I learned quickly. While my coworkers spent their bonuses, I invested mine. Every promotion, every raise, every extra dollar went into long-term investments. 5 years passed, slowly, very slowly. My life began changing, not because I got lucky, because I stayed patient. Meanwhile, Ryan bounced from one failed business idea to another. Yet every time he needed money, Dad wrote another check. Then came Grandma's 82nd birthday. It was the first time our entire family had been together in almost a year. Ryan spent most of the afternoon talking about a brand new business opportunity. He claimed it was guaranteed to make millions. Dad looked impressed. I noticed Grandma quietly watching both of them. She didn't interrupt. She didn't argue. She simply smiled. Before I left that evening, she hugged me a little longer than usual. Then she whispered, "Noah, some gifts arrive exactly when they're needed." I smiled, thinking she was talking about birthday cake or family. I never imagined those would be some of the last words she'd ever say to me. 3 weeks after Grandma's birthday, my phone rang at 6:30 in the morning. I almost ignored it. Nobody calls that early with good news. But when I saw the name on the screen, I immediately answered. It was Grandma's attorney. "Mr. Hayes." His voice was quiet. "I'm sorry to inform you that your grandmother passed away peacefully last night." For a moment, I couldn't speak, even though we knew her health had been declining. Knowing she was gone felt impossible. Grandma was the one person in my family who never made me feel like I had to prove my worth. She simply loved me, and losing that hurt more than I expected. The funeral was held 5 days later. My entire family attended. My father wore an expensive suit, my brother arrived late, but somehow still managed to make the moment about himself. He spent most of the afternoon telling relatives about his future plans. Even at Grandma's funeral, Ryan was selling a dream. I stood near the back of the room, quiet, watching, and remembering the woman who had always believed in me. After the service, Attorney Collins approached me. "Noah, I need you to come to my office tomorrow." I looked at him. "Is something wrong?" He shook his head. "No. Actually, it's something your grandmother specifically wanted you to hear." My heart started beating faster because I knew Grandma never did anything without a reason. The next morning, I arrived at Attorney Collins' office. My parents were already there. So was Ryan. The moment I walked in, Ryan smiled. "Well, look who finally showed up." I ignored him and sat down. Attorney Collins placed a folder on the table. "Before we begin, I want everyone to understand that Eleanor Hayes was very clear about her wishes." My father nodded confidently. "Of course. She always knew Ryan was the one who would continue the family legacy." I looked at him. Even after Grandma was gone, he still found a way to make everything about Ryan. Attorney Collins opened the folder and began reading. "To my grandson Ryan." My brother immediately sat up straighter. His smile grew. "The first thing I leave you is my collection of antique watches." Ryan's smile became slightly smaller. He was expecting more. Then came the next sentence. "To my son, my old family photographs, my personal letters, and my gardening tools." My father looked confused. "That's it?" Attorney Collins nodded. "Yes." Then he turned the page. "And now?" "To my grandson Noah." The entire room went silent. Ryan looked annoyed. My father leaned forward. Attorney Collins continued. "I leave the following: the investment account I created 10 years ago, the property located on Oak Ridge Lane, and my private business portfolio." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Ryan laughed, but it sounded forced. "Wait, you're saying Grandma left him money?" Attorney Collins corrected him. "Not simply money. Assets. Significant assets." My father stared at me. "Noah?" I didn't know what to say. I had no idea. Grandma had never mentioned any of this. Attorney Collins continued. "However, there is one condition." Ryan immediately smiled. "Of course, there has to be a condition." The attorney looked at him. "Yes. Your grandmother anticipated that certain family members might misunderstand her decision." Ryan's expression changed. "What does that mean?" Attorney Collins opened another document. 10 years ago, Eleanor created a trust. She funded it with investments she managed throughout her life. Her instructions were very specific. He looked directly at me. "Noah receives full control of these assets because she believed he understood responsibility." My father crossed his arms. "That doesn't make sense." "Ryan is the businessman." Attorney Collins looked down at his notes. "Actually, your mother included a personal letter explaining her reasoning." He removed an envelope. It had my name written on it. My hands started shaking slightly. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Grandma. The room became completely silent as I opened it. Inside was a single page, and the first sentence made my breath stop. "Noah, if you're reading this, your father probably believes I made the wrong choice." I unfolded Grandma's letter carefully. The paper smelled faintly like the old house, like the kitchen where we used to bake cookies, like the living room where she always told me I was capable of more than I believed. I started reading. "Noah, I know you never expected anything from me. That's exactly why you deserve this." I paused. My eyes moved across the page. For years, I watched people measure success by money, titles, and appearances. I watched them celebrate confidence while ignoring character. Your brother learned how to impress people. You learned how to build something. My throat tightened. Then I reached the sentence that changed everything. "The greatest mistake a person can make is confusing being loved with being entitled." I slowly looked up. Ryan was staring at me. For the first time in my life, he looked uncertain. Grandma's letter continued. "Noah, I want you to know something important. I did not leave you these assets because you are my favorite. I left them to you because I trust you. Money does not reveal someone's character. It reveals what was already there." I looked across the table. My father wouldn't look at me. Ryan was completely silent. The same people who spent years believing I was the failure were now sitting across from the person Grandma believed in. Attorney Collins cleared his throat. There is one final part. He turned to my father. Your mother requested this section be read aloud. My father looked uncomfortable. Why? The attorney opened another page because she believed you needed to hear it. The room became completely quiet. My son, I love you, but I have spent years watching you confuse control with leadership. My father's face changed. You taught Ryan that success means appearing important. You taught Noah that he was never enough. But the truth is, the child you underestimated became the person with the strongest foundation. Nobody spoke. My mother covered her mouth. Ryan looked down. For once, there was no argument, no excuse, no explanation, just silence. After the meeting ended, my father followed me outside. Noah. I stopped. I had heard that tone before. The tone he used when he wanted something. You can't seriously think Grandma wanted you to have everything. I turned around. She did. He shook his head. Ryan has always been the businessman. I smiled slightly. Has he? My father didn't answer, because he knew. Everyone knew. Ryan had always talked about success. I had quietly worked for it. A week later, the family dinner happened. The same dinner where my father had planned to announce Ryan's future. The same dinner where he gave him the college fund. Only this time, the situation was different. My father stood at the head of the table, but he didn't look confident anymore. He looked tired. Ryan barely spoke. Everyone knew about Grandma's will. Everyone knew what happened. My father cleared his throat. Noah, I owe you an apology. The words surprised me. Not because I didn't want to hear them, because I never thought I would. I spent years believing success had a specific appearance. He looked down. I was wrong. I could have used that moment to attack him, to remind him of every insult, every comparison, every time he made me feel smaller. But I didn't, because Grandma was right. Success isn't proving someone else failed. Success is becoming someone you respect. I simply said, I don't need you to see me as better than Ryan. I just needed you to see me as your son. My father's eyes became emotional, and for the first time, he didn't have a response. Months later, I used Grandma's investments carefully. I didn't buy expensive cars. I didn't try to impress anyone. I created a business fund for young entrepreneurs who came from difficult backgrounds, people who had talent, but needed someone to believe in them. Exactly like Grandma believed in me. Ryan eventually started working at a smaller company. Not because he was punished, because he finally had to build something himself. And honestly, that was the best lesson he could have received. Sometimes revenge isn't watching someone lose. Sometimes revenge is watching them finally understand what they refuse to see. My father spent years calling me a failure. My brother spent years believing he was entitled to everything. But in the end, the person nobody expected became the one everyone respected. Because talent can be ignored, hard work can be underestimated, but character always reveals itself eventually. If this story gave you that feeling of justice, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have forgiven your family after everything Noah experienced? Or would you have walked away completely? Subscribe for more original Reddit-style revenge stories filled with betrayal, shocking twists, and satisfying endings. See you in the next story.